All Indiana Politics is your premier source for Indiana politics, focusing on issues that matter to you.
I still want us to be the best in the Midwest.
We can't afford another lockdown.
Give the citizens of this country the relief they need.
Education in the state of Indiana remains priority number one.
In-depth, nonpartisan coverage.
We don't know exactly where the economy will be in January.
People are worried with good reason.
Exclusive interviews with Indiana's political leaders.
We have the resources here in the state of Indiana to care for those who are in need.
Expert analysis on critical legislation.
We need to reform those laws.
This recovery is going to take some time.
We've got to anticipate that there'll be a budget shortfall.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network. This is All Indiana Politics.
Good morning and welcome to All Indiana Politics. I'm Garrett Bergquist, in for Phil Sanchez. An Indiana congressman who serves on the House Budget Committee says Republicans will not cut entitlements. Marlin Stutzman's comments come as Congress faces a September 30th deadline to pass a budget. I sat down with him to discuss budget cuts, President Donald Trump's order to dismantle the Department of Education, and a bill he just filed in Congress. With us now is Congressman Marlin Stutzman. Congressman, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So the federal government is now funded through September 30th. What are you looking for between now and then to be a yes vote on the spending plan?
Well, we've got a lot of work. We've passed the reconciliation portion out of the Budget Committee, which I serve on, and now that goes to the Senate. The Senate's got to do their work, but our committees of jurisdiction in the House will start breaking down each of those particular line items that they've been assigned to meet certain numbers. So we've got probably 2 months or so of committee work, and then we'll be getting those bills to the floor to get the final budget passed by the end of September. So we've got a lot of work. Summer is going to move fast. We've never seen anything like this in Washington, with President Trump coming in with a mindset of reform and saving dollars and getting back to a balanced budget. And as a budget hawk, I've always been preaching that same message, and I'm glad that President Trump wants to return our federal government back to balanced budgets.
Will there be cuts to Medicare, Medicaid, or Social Security?
No, I don't think there has to be at all. In fact, that's one of the things that, by going in and finding out where wasteful dollars are going, or where, even like a Social Security check that is still being sent out to somebody that's over 120 years old, cleaning it up. That's what our focus really is, I look at this as like a business that had bad management, and you have to come in and you have to clean up all the garbage bills that were being paid, and the slush fund that somebody had for themselves to, pay for their gas, and, things that didn't really weren't necessary for the business. It's the same thing with government. There's a lot of dollars that are going out from the taxpayer that are paying for things that aren't what we would all think of as important priorities. And so DOGE is giving us that information and where the funding is going. A lot of this cleanup can be done first, and should be done first, before any sort of cuts to Medicaid, Medicare, or Social Security. That doesn't need to happen. I think cleaning up the government is the most important priority.
The Pentagon just announced that it's going to cut up to 60,000 civilian positions. Now, the Defense Finance Accounting Service is headquartered over in Lawrence, not your district, but still your state. Will there be cuts at DFAS?
Don't know all of those details yet. That's something that the new administration is working on. I know Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth has an eye for cleaning up the Pentagon as well. I've got a lot of friends over at the Pentagon, and as large as that building is, it was only about 20% occupied. In fact, we're seeing that with other buildings too, that we're paying enormous amount of rent, and it's only being occupied, under 50% in some cases. So don't know what's going to happen and how it's going to affect us. My guess is most of the cleanup is going to actually happen in Washington, D.C., because that's where the bloated bureaucracies are. That's where this corruption or fraud or taking advantage of all of these, some folks, they're just taking advantage of the system because they haven't been told that they can't.
You have a bill in Congress called the Restoring requiring Checks and Balances Act. What does that entail?
Yeah, so, it kind of goes back to this whole bloated government, bloated bureaucracy that we've seen happen over time. And it happens in corporations too. It happens in businesses as well. It's just like, things kind of, life just keeps going, and all of a sudden you don't realize that, oh, we've got this program, we've got this program. Well, we don't even use that. We send checks out to this company, we don't even work with them anymore. It's just a cleanup that has to happen. So my bill that would eliminate every regulation at the end of 5 years, that every regulation would have a 5-year window, and then it would be up for renewal at the end of that 5 years, and then there would be a review, and there would be the opportunity to see if does that regulation make sense? Do we need to keep it on the books, or is it okay if it just goes away? And so too many times these regulations come in and are enacted, and they're there for years and years and are not even necessary or important to whatever industry that they may be a part of the regulatory agencies. So this is just a way to say, you know what, each regulation has a 5-year window. At the end of the 5 years, we can reevaluate and decide whether it continues on for another 5 years or if it needs to be eliminated, and we save taxpayer dollars.
As we're recording this, President Donald Trump is expected to sign an executive order directing the beginning of the dismantling of the Department of Education. Now, that agency handles civil rights complaints within the education system, among other things. Will dismantling that department disadvantage minority students?
No, absolutely not. In fact, a lot of times, and this is what's I think important for all of us as Americans, is where are we best served from our government? And so, we've got of course, local government, we've got school boards, we've got state government, and of course the federal government. I think we're much better served by a local and state controlled agency rather than a federal government. And also, why should Indiana be put in a disadvantage because New York or California has more of a voice or a louder voice in Washington? We should make sure that we control our own destiny. And we're seeing states like California and Illinois that are going bankrupt. That's not the type of leadership that is good for the entire country. It's the states like Indiana where we're conservative and we are making sure that we have a balanced budget and we have a responsive state government. I think Governor Braun's doing a remarkable job making sure that we are always going to be there for people's complaints and issues. I mean, we deal with those complaints in our office, and we want to be helpful wherever we can because we don't want people that are disadvantaged not to have a voice. In fact, we actually make sure that we're very available and accessible, and I think that's more important, to be accessible across the country rather than just a big, concrete building in Washington, D.C.
Coming up, the new chair of the Indiana Democratic Party lays out her plan to rebuild. Welcome back. Indiana Democrats have a new boss. Party delegates elected former State Senator Karen Tallian to succeed Mike Schmull as chair. She takes charge of a party that has not won a statewide race since 2012. I asked her about her plan to rebuild the party. And joining us now is the new chair of the Indiana Democratic Party, former State Senator Karen Tallian. Karen, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Garrett. Nice to be here.
What is your vision for the Indiana Democratic Party?
My vision for the Democratic Party is that we need to put all of our people back together. We've been splintered for a bit over a number of issues, but I believe that what's going on in the Republican Party, especially at the national level, is going to give us an opportunity to bring a lot of people back. So my vision is we need to unite all of our people. The other thing is we need to get all of our people out to vote. Our voter turnout numbers, not only in Indiana but across the nation, have been pretty bad. When you consider that, we've sent our guys out to fight wars so that we can have a democracy, and then for people to take it for granted and not show up to vote is just not acceptable.
You've alluded to this already. There's a kind of a divide in the Democratic Party right now. There are some who want to move closer to the center and try to peel off disaffected Republicans, and then there are others who say the party is not far enough to the left. We need to put out some much more progressive policies. How do you reconcile those two camps?
Well, I'm no youngster to politics. I have seen during the course of my life that, a lot of times when you want change, there are the voices out there that are the far kind of on the edge for change, and they're often loud. And we need them because they attract attention to the issues. But then it's like driving a ship or moving a great big barge. You need some loud stuff at one end to slowly move the rest of the body in the direction you want to go. So I believe that there's a place for people on the far left of our party, but I don't believe that that's where the bulk of our party is. So I think we need to keep those people, listen to those voices, and then, the ship's going to turn, but it's slow.
How does the Indiana Democratic Party peel off disaffected Trump voters or centrists without alienating the party's progressive wing?
Well, I guess I'm going to find out in the next 4 years. Of course, that's what we need to do. I have long been a friend of labor, for example. I was on the labor committee and was the voice of labor in the Senate for the whole 16 sessions that I was there. I have a good friendly relationship with those people. Some of them have said to me, yeah, we've been away from the table for a while, but if you're in, we're back. So I believe that I can bring some of the leadership to the table, and then we're going to talk to them and find out how we reach their members. I think we can do this. I wouldn't be sitting here if I didn't believe that the Democratic Party can do this.
We've had 2 sexual harassment scandals over the past few months that involved prominent Indiana and specifically Indianapolis Democrats. We had former Chief Deputy Mayor of Indianapolis, Thomas Cook, faced sexual harassment allegations from some former staffers. We've had sexual harassment allegations against now former Senate Minority Leader Greg Taylor. What's your plan to head off future incidents?
I think that people need to remember, as the state party, we have our lane and our role. For example, I'm going to just say about Greg Taylor, the state party may issue a censure, may issue something, but it can't do anything. I mean, legislators who are accused of something, there's a process in the legislature. I know because I was involved in that when, I don't know if you remember when the whole Curtis Hill incident happened. Both the Senate and the House had people that they appointed to a committee to make sure that we had a good, steady sexual harassment reporting program and a whole schematic of what people were supposed to do. I was on that committee. I helped write that. But reporting is one thing, and dealing with the state legislator is in a different, it belongs in the legislature. Now, like I said, the state party has put together an ethics committee. We've made sure that our sexual harassment policy in our own framework it has been revised, updated, and is pretty tight. So the answer to your question kind of depends on where the allegations are falling.
Coming up, we ask Indiana's best political team what President Trump's order to dismantle the Department of Education could mean for your child's schools. Welcome back to All Indiana Politics as we welcome in 2 members of Indiana's best political team, Democrat Lara Beck and Republican Mario Massillamany. Let's begin with President Donald Trump's order to begin dismantling the Department of Education. The states fund schools and set the curriculum. So given that, Lara, how much would this actually affect schools here in Indiana day to day?
Well, I think at this point in time, we really don't know, right? I mean, this is very similar, despite Congressman Stutzman's, glowing endorsement of the DOJ Commission. We really don't know yet what that impact is going to be. And I think it's also important to note that this is an executive order. It takes an act of Congress to actually abolish the Department of Education. But I do think what we're going to see is like we see across the board with a lot of the Trump and Elon Musk actions, is there's going to be chaos, there's going to be confusion. And at the end of the day, it's going to hurt real people and how they operate, frankly. So this could have a very far-ranging impact on students with disabilities. So that hurts your nephew with autism, or it also could impact student loans and student loan repayment and accessing student loans. And that hurts the college student who is working a summer job in your company. So there are real world impacts on this. We don't necessarily know yet, but I think it's something that we should be really concerned about, especially because for Democrats, it's actually a good issue for us to fight Trump on, because public opinion is actually on the side of keeping and enhancing the Department of Education.
Mario, to Lara's point, civil rights and education access are a big part of the department's portfolio. Would this disadvantage minority students?
I don't believe so. In the U.S. Constitution, nowhere does it mention education or schools. This is truly a power and a responsibility on the states. If you look at the statistics, 8th graders, 70% of 8th graders are not proficient in English. 72% of 8th graders are not proficient in math. And this, we've had decades of failures by the Department of Education, and our school systems are failing in the United States. We keep lagging amongst other civilized countries. And so we need to do something different. And the problem is that one size fits all for 50 states does not work. What works in Indiana might not work in some other states. And so what we need to do is empower these states to be able to identify and realize what is better fit for their state, let alone their school district. I don't think that it's going to impact minority students or minority families, because if anything, like states like Indiana and other states need to take that into their responsibility of protecting minority students and making sure that education is free and fair for all. And so as such, that I believe that this is a better resolution and a better way to empower states and empower school districts to have a better understanding of their students and to be able to utilize, proper procedures to emphasize and teach their students instead of having a blanket one size fits all.
Let's turn to the interview we just heard from the new state Democratic Party chair. And Lara, we'll return to you for this one. Tallian told me she wants to focus on party unity. Is that possible given the generational divide? Younger Democrats generally appear to want a more confrontational approach.
Well, I don't necessarily know if I'd say if it's not possible. I mean, I think the most important part is for the party to come together, because if we're fighting with each other, we are definitely not going to win at all. So that's that's the first order of business. But what I think would be really important, and I think it should be a top goal, is that, and this is something I think everybody can agree upon, regardless of however you want to go about doing it, is we absolutely have to spend time building our county party networks and building our parties from the ground up. We have races throughout the state where these are really the feeders and the pipelines of talent and getting people into all of these different roles within the party. We have races that just sometimes we might not put a Democrat up. We may not even have someone to run in these areas. So we need to really, from the very ground up, from the grassroots, really start building up our county parties so we can really make a dent, especially in years where it's a presidential year or in years when we have top tier races. I think I think one of the topics, I think it's something that, no offense to the media, but I do think it's something the media picks up on, because there are differing opinions within the party nationally on what direction it needs to go in. But what we've got to do in Indiana is we have to really get back to those brass tacks of what are we doing at the party level, what are we doing at the recruitment level, so we can get qualified candidates to run.
Lara, I got to turn to Mario here, so I've only got about a minute left.
Sorry, Mario.
Yeah, Mario, how do
Republicans
Republicans
This is why I think
counter
Lara
that?
Beck should have run for state chair, because she's right. How you build the parties from the ground up, not from the top down. You know, the young people, the young generations, especially the progressives, think that by getting on Twitter and bashing people and being aggressive is going to get things done. That's one of the reasons I think Republicans were hoping Destiny Wells would have won, but she has now lost 3 races in 3 years. You know, the way for the Democrats to rebuild their party is from the grassroots, from the ground up, and to build their county parties and to have a chance of winning some statewide offices. But yes, to Laura's point, that's the way they do it. Are they going to do it? I don't think so, because I think that there's too many Twitter or X warriors that love to just get on X and just post what they feel. But
Mario and Lara, we're going to have to leave that there. Good discussion as always. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for All Indiana Politics. We'll be back here next Sunday morning at 9:30. And be sure to check out the All Indiana Politics podcast, including extended interviews from this show, online at wishtv.com. Have a great rest of your weekend.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network. Watch All Indiana Politics live Sunday mornings at 9:30 on Wish TV and at wishtv.com. Subscribe to this podcast and listen weekly here on the All Indiana Podcast Network. And be sure to discover even more great podcasts at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.